You know, I'm a huge proponent for handheld gaming, and with the NES Classic Mini coming out, and with lots of speculation about a possible Super Nintendo or Super Famicom Mini coming out, one has to wonder, is it worth coming out with a Game Boy Mini? I'm taking it to the next level, people. I mean, we haven't even thought of this. Here's the thing, I've got a couple ideas and some things that we can touch on, some talking points if you will, about why or why not have a Game Boy Mini Classic system come out. So, first off, some of the reasons as to why we shouldn't. One reason is we already have Game Boy emulation on the 3DS with the Virtual Console, and there's a lot of titles on there to choose from. The 3DS has a very good battery life for the most part, and yeah, so plus you get save states there too, where you can close the system and come back to it anytime you want. So it's kind of a no-brainer as far as emulation goes. If you want to go with a handheld route and you want something a little newer, a little hipper, 3DS might be worth your while. Another reason might be smartphones. Smartphones have the capabilities to play these games via emulation. So, why not? I mean, if we have the technology, may as well use it. And why make it so that you have to carry multiple devices? If you've got a phone, you can play it on one device. Now, another good point is that we already have these types of consoles. We have these handheld systems that have the capabilities to play these games, and especially the Game Boy Advance SP and also the Game Boy Micro. Now, the Game Boy Micro can't play Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, but still, you've got a nice, very compact system that has pretty good battery life, that has the ability to play Game Boy Advance games. And again, with the Game Boy Advance SP, you can play any game and it's backlit. Now, another thing, too many ports. There are so many ports of games on the Game Boy, and while these Game Boy games are definitely worth checking out on their own merit, it begs to ask the question, is it worth it? Is it worth all the effort and time in order to make just a new hip system? Well, let's go on the other side of the spectrum. Yes. Now, one really cool idea is Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games could all be on one handheld, and they could all be built in. Just pop an SD card in, or perhaps maybe upgrade it, download the titles through your laptop or computer, or even through your 3DS or Wii U. I mean, there's a lot of different possibilities as to how Nintendo could do this, and also expand upon it with this type of piece of hardware. So you get an all-in-one unit, all in the palm of your hand. Now keep in mind, these games are super small, so you can fit tons of them on a little unit or system like this. These games are, for the most part, smaller than NES games and Super NES games, so in terms of memory, you're going to be able to store ROMs for these games on a piece of equipment like this, and have it be small, have it be compact, and it's going to have great battery life. Now, Game Boys do exist, but who wants to walk around with this? I mean, it's cool and hipster, I guess, but who's going to want to walk around with something like this, especially these older units? I mean, this is a Game Boy Light. It has the capabilities to have a light functionality built into it, which is really cool, but you still can't really see that well. And while the Game Boy Advance SP, you've got to walk around with all these games, I mean, that's a lot of storage to think about. So if you have one unit that has everything in the palm of your hand, and it's backlit, it might be worth checking out. And finally, phones, smartphones, touchscreens, ugh. Who wants to play video games on a touchscreen? I mean, I need physical buttons. Physical. So that got me thinking, what games would be on this handheld if it were to release? Well, you know, you've got some pretty easy games to port over. You've got, of course, all the Nintendo games. So you got to think Super Mario Land 1, 2, and 3. All the Wario Land games. Kid Icarus, the second Kid Icarus game, which I don't believe, other than getting a port on the 3DS, hasn't really been talked about that much. Metroid 2, Return of Samus, you've got that. Then you've got some other games too. I mean, the possibilities are honestly endless. But think about this. These are all my Game Boy games. Now, there's about, I don't know, 30-something, 40-something in here. Think about having something, maybe a little bit bigger than this, or a little bit smaller than this, backlit, the palm of your hand, that can have all these games built into it. Who wouldn't want that? So, it's just something to think about. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm interested in seeing if you guys think that there could be, or should there be, a possibility of a Game Boy Mini. That's all for this time. Well, kind of want to go play some Game Boy games.